Again, happy 4th of July, second episode of the day for me here. Let's talk about peak pay for real quick. This is a Doordash only concept. And so, what if I told you that peak pay is a shell game that Doordash plays with its drivers? Let me briefly explain what peak pay is. It is, you go into the app, you look at the map of your zone, and it says peak pay $1 per order or $2 plus per order. Now, the reason why it's a shell game is we can't prove whether or not DoorDash actually adds this money onto an order or an offer. We can't prove whether or not that offer is $1 or $2 more than it would have been without the peak pay on the screen. We can't prove this. And if we can't prove this, then it is indeed a shell game. It's kind of like when the state of Minnesota says that we donate money towards parks from lottery proceeds. Well, that money would have been given to the parks anyway. It would have just come out of the general budget instead. So this is that kind of a shell game. It's the same thing. Where DoorDash says we'll pay an additional $1 or $2 plus per order peak pay. You'll see this on the zone map when you open the app to begin with, and it's a shell game. It's just a shell game. You don't really make any more money, at least not anything that can be proven that they actually did really add $1 or $2 per order just for being logged in at that particular moment. I will add that in my specific market of Forest Lake, Minnesota, $1 or $2 is not going to move the needle. So I say this, as a critique, but also as a factual statement that kind of money does not move the needle at all. Not in a market where the average trip runs anywhere between 5 and 25 miles. A typical trip runs in that long mileage range. There are only a handful of orders that happen within town here that are like 1 or 2 miles, and even then you're only getting $3 or $4 to begin with. It's not enough to justify me getting off of this chair here, spending the time waiting on the restaurant. Again, average wait time in Forest Lake is 12 minutes, according to my own calculations, based on a week's of 1 week's worth of requests back in April that I did this, that I surveyed and compiled the average restaurant wait times. 12 minutes. You're getting, $1 or $2 is not going to be enough to merit that kind of time that you spend on waiting on restaurants to have the orders ready. Which again, in this market, is excessive. I will admit 12 minutes is very excessive. But so even on those short runs, $1 or $2 is not going to make any difference. So it's not going to make much of a difference. It's not going to make the math any better on the long runs outside of town, 10, 15, 20 miles. $1 is just not going to add that much to the dollars per mile equation. I believe $1 on a 20-cent on $1 on a 20-mile trip adds 5 cents per mile. 5 cents per mile is not going to move the needle, when in my case what I'm looking for break even is $1.44 per mile. So in addition to being a shell game, it doesn't even move the needle at all. My advice is to still consider orders based on dollars per mile. You're not going to base your decision to log in based on these piddly peak pay displays on screens. You need to evaluate every offer based on its own individual merit and not assume that they threw this extra money on because they likely didn't. With that said, I will continue waiting here because, again, we have a parade here in town today. So I am for the most part not driving. I do have my Uber app on for a couple of exceptions in which if I can obtain a Walmart order that runs well out of town, clearing town is probably the best strategy on parade day because of all of our road closures. I can get to Walmart or Home Depot without encountering any of these closures. So I can actually obtain those pickups and not run into the parade closures. So I'm going to keep the Uber app on for that particular reason only. Doordash is closed today for me. Anyhow, that's it for now. Peak pay, shell game. That's all I'm going to say for now. Peace out, homies.